I don't understand why everyone feels the need to go to college. You've heard it from years from your parents, friends, and teachers. What college are you going to? You're going to college, right? You have to get good grades here in high school so you can get into a good college. Are you studying for your SATs and ACTs? Oh, you took them already. What were your scores? We've all found ourselves in this position, or perhaps if you're still in high school, you're hearing these questions right now. The problem I have is with this prevailing assumption that college is good, and there is not any alternative that should be considered. No one has ever asked you if college is right for you. It's a huge decision that seems to have already been made for you. As much as I think it would be irresponsible to say you shouldn't go to college, the opposite being you should go to college is just as irresponsible. Why is there this pressure to go to college? Well, from the parental front, it is because parents always want their children to do better than they do, and the easy answer is to have your children more educated. This line of thinking may not be completely right nowadays, but when your parents grew up, it was very much sound advice. Let's say your parents were born in the decades of the 60s and 70s, just for reference sake. That means they would have gone to college around the late 70s or 80s. During that time, the percent of the population with a bachelor's degree was approximately 15%, and that has doubled to 30+% within the last couple of years. Sounds great, right? More people getting educated, more opportunities for them, and for the country. Well, obviously, as a society, we have advanced. We have our computers, internet, and cell phones. But since the 1980s, our country's income hasn't seen a large increase, even with a greater number of college graduates. So we're having to produce much more advanced goods for more people and work in fields of high technology. But our average pay hasn't changed. This sounds like fake news, perhaps, but it's not. If we're to adjust for inflation, a bachelor's degree holder would have been making around $48,000 in 1985 and around $50,000 in 2017. The problem we face is there isn't a large amount of good paying jobs. You don't need to have a college degree to work in most retail, service jobs, construction, or truck driving. Unfortunately, there's a large percent of college students working jobs like these, jobs that don't require a college degree. In recent history, it is more of a problem due to the increased amount of people going to and graduating from college. When you graduate, you have a 44% chance of being underemployed. So you're not unemployed, just not using your degree. But that means you've just laden yourself with tens of thousands of dollars of debt to work in a job that you could have worked at when you were 18 years old. Some of the most common occupations for those in their early 20s would be laborers in the transportation industry, food service workers and managers, caregivers or childcare workers, teachers and nurses. So unless you're a teacher or a nurse, there's a high likelihood you're doing a job that you could have done when you were a teenager. That brings us to another problem. Going to college makes you overqualified by just your age alone, and you've just lost 5 to 6 years of your life not being employed and not competing in the market. Should you find yourself not working in your degree's field, you'd be going up against younger competition who might be willing to work for less than you. One of the motivators of going to college is to avoid being in fields that are held in low regard by the vast majority of society. No one dreams to be a plumber or a construction worker or HVAC repairman. The reality, though, is people need to do that work, and the barrier of entry is much, much smaller for those careers. Let's use an HVAC repairman as an example. On average, an HVAC repairman would make $40,000 per year and can start working at 19 years old with an apprenticeship or a certificate from a trade school. Now let's compare that to your average college student. It would take that student 5 years to complete a bachelor's degree. Within that 5 years, our HVAC repairman would make $200,000. Of course, that average student would make next to nothing in that time frame. In fact, they would be worth negative amounts. This is because they would need to pay for their tuition, living expenses, transportation, and room and board. If our average student decides to go to college at a private school or an out-of-state public school, they would spend around $50,000 a year in expenses. To sum it up, in 5 years, that college student is $450,000 behind in earnings, which doesn't take into account any future interest on student loans. You could make an argument that you would cover that gap rather quickly with your new degree, right? That might not be true, though. Let's say your degree is a business degree, which is the most common type of bachelor degree earned. Within that field, accounting is the most prevalent specialty. The average accountant salary out of college is $53,000. With a $13,000 a year pay difference, it would take 34 years to break even with the HVAC repairman's earnings, plus paying down your student debt. This assumes you pay no interest on your student debt and no one gets a raise. You'll be 57 years old. Okay, that sounds kind of crazy, but maybe we can bring that hypothetical situation down to earth by giving our accountant here a promotion after 10 years of experience. We'll say it's a hefty one and increases his or her pay to $65,000 a year. With that promotion, the accountant can cut down the time to match the HVAC repairman's worth by 12 years. So they'd be 45 years old instead. That still doesn't sound that great. Are you skeptical? Sure. I can understand if you are. Maybe my figures are cherry-picked or skewed to support my bias. Maybe, but let's examine. Perhaps $50,000 a year in tuition and living expenses is reserved for the elite few that go to Ivy League schools. Not necessarily. If you were to attend a public school out of state, expect to pay $35,000 to $40,000 a year in expenses. That's not exactly cheap. You'd be right to assume there are cheaper options, though. Attending an in-state public school could bring your costs down to $21,000 a year. It may be the best bet, but you should consider why other schools cost more. Studies have shown that highly selective public and private schools produce graduates that earn 20% more than not so selective schools. Graduates from said schools also experience higher employment rates, 84% for the top schools of our country. These facts bring up a couple of questions. Why is college so expensive? If graduates from selective schools are typically more successful or richer, then why are non-selective schools almost as expensive? If I'm not going to receive the same opportunities as, say, a Harvard graduate, and I have to pay the same tuition as a Harvard graduate, then something's wrong with the system. It's not the school's fault entirely, just partly. With the prevailing notion that everyone should attend college comes two problems. One, not everyone has enough money to go to college, and two, colleges don't have to worry about the students' needs. Let's tackle the first problem really quick. Not everyone has money to afford paying tens of thousands of dollars a year in tuition, and they remedy this problem with really accessible student loans underwritten by the government with taxpayer dollars. With students not having to worry about fronting their own money for their education, they are detached from the gravity of their financial situation. In their mind, college is a sure thing, and they can pay off their debts over the course of their careers. Perhaps they don't know about the employment rates that we previously mentioned, but regardless, there's little value placed on money due to its availability. I've known my friends using their loans to pay for clothes, cars, and other non-education related purchases. The same readily available money should remind you of the 2008 financial crisis. You would read news articles blaming subprime loans, wrapped up into securities, as the cause of the recession. I guess you won't be surprised when I tell you there are student loan asset-backed securities as well. Anyways, the second problem was colleges not really having to worry about the welfare of their students. Look, if they really did, college wouldn't be expensive. The free-flowing money from student loans meant colleges could increase their tuitions as more federal loan money became available. The whole point of the government increasing the amount of money it would lend was to get more people into college. But unfortunately, all it did was allow colleges to charge more. Maybe that would be okay if colleges spent that money on improving the education of their students, but that doesn't really happen. You'll find colleges not hiring teachers. Instead, they're putting their newfound wealth into administration, infrastructure, and sports. But they get away with it without much protest. The reason is there's only so many colleges for a country of children that all must go to college. They don't have to worry about losing students as long as people keep having kids and the population increases. They'll have enough applications. So we can't expect colleges to change if their source of money doesn't change. Should we enable this broken system? Well, I don't see it changing unless the country changes its outlook. We are so critical about saving in so many other aspects of our lives. We all love to buy on sale. We use coupons. We scour our receipts for any stray charge. We groan at rising interest rates and read reviews online for hours for big purchases. But when it comes to college, every line item is okay. Every cost is acceptable. We can't negotiate a $40,000 tuition bill, but you better believe we'd all negotiate a $40,000 car purchase. Hell, we'd negotiate down a $10,000 car purchase. I find it so odd how so much of our country is okay with colleges charging insane amounts of money. I made mention that 44% of graduates are underemployed. There's another statistic you should know about. Only 27% of graduates are actually working a job where their specific major is utilized. Going to college is gambling. It's a lottery. Imagine lottery ticket prices ranging from $100,000 to $250,000, but you have a 27 to 54% chance to win. Not bad, right, I guess? What you win is not a jackpot, though, but the opportunity to earn around just $10,000 to $20,000 more per year than a person with only a high school education. Just remember, when you don't win this hypothetical lottery, you don't get a refund for your hundreds of thousands of dollars. Colleges wouldn't be able to get away with their lack of quality of education and overcharging of tuition if they didn't have an endless and increasing stream of students applying every year. We need to keep our minds open to different ways to educate ourselves. Also, we need to remove the stigma we as a society have with blue-collar jobs. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe to find out more of what I don't understand.